WebEx going? Anybody on there? Okay, it is 5:30 and we will call this meeting of the Public Works and Highway Committee to order. And roll call shows that all committee members are present. I will entertain approval of the minutes from March 1st.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 1st.
Second.
Are there any changes or comments? No changes or comments on the minutes? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, next we have public comment, and I'm going to ask for anybody who's here that wants to comment on something that's not on the agenda, because we'll hold your comments for the summer sewer service because it's the next thing on the agenda. So anybody that is here for any other reason? No? Yes? Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. All right, Melanie Smythe, N140W17938, Cedar Lane. The traffic light at Goldendale and Holy Hill appears to have started. So if there's a schedule for that, that would be helpful to know. The roads have been choked down. So it's actually a lot safer now that there aren't 6 lanes. It's only 4, so that's good. So I'm asking for some information about the schedule, and I can just contact Larry tomorrow if that's the way it is. It would be nice if it was posted somewhere on the website. The other thing is a comment about waste management. I've been looking on Nextdoor, and there's still issues within our community about pickup. And one interesting thing is that in the communities around us, there are at least 2 other suppliers of this service, which I wasn't aware of because at the last meeting we had said that it was a monopoly. So I was wondering if this committee could look into a breach of contract and maybe get some other prices from some of the other contractors or service suppliers and just give waste management a run for their money. I mean, they're obviously not paying attention since there are still problems and it's been going on for a while. And they still haven't fixed the map, so our road is not on their map. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Scott Heffley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road. First of all, congratulations, Trustee Miller. Result of the election last night. We have Trustee Miller to work with. 4 quick comments, and I'm sure they'll be answered later. I do see Larry here, and I know Scott Anderson's in the building, but I'll ask the questions because I'm curious about them. So when I looked over the agenda, I saw that we're spending $2 million on roads. I understand there's some carryover and $700,000 for a 2-year contract for seal coating because we get a better deal or something. So that's $2.7 million on roads. Has that all been approved, gone through a budget, decided upon, taken out of whatever fund reserve, road reserve, overflow, whatever it is? It's $2.7 million is a lot of roads. So just the question, Also, I know we're getting a sewer study done. Of course, I'm on utility advisory, and I think it's something that's long overdue. Last one was 40 years ago. We've amended it, never really looked at it hard. So the $62,400 is an amount to do that. It's going to take some months, but part of the reason for this is not just utility advisory saying, hey, we'd like to see this, but also the fact that we're expanding services to the IGA for Richfield. So my question is, what shouldn't Richfield cover part of this? Because part of this is necessity because of the expansion to Richfield. So will they pay for half of it, part of it, some of it is the question. So going along with that, we were told with the referendum that all efforts with regards to the IGA going to Richfield would be reimbursed by Richfield. We're going to do some of the work. We're going to prove it. They pay us, okay? When you have a project of that magnitude that's ongoing, how are we keeping track of it? I really think for a project of that size, like other projects, you should keep a separate report or a separate journal or a separate ledger. A lot of companies do that to know where you're at. What's your ROI? What did you expect? How did it turn out? Now, we're not going to know, but I mean, there should be, not just throwing it in the general fund and saying everything's fine, okay? So I, as a person, just as a taxpayer, I don't want this village to pay for anything related to the IGA other than the 50% right-of-way that was agreed upon in the IGA language that you all know about. Because that's what the taxpayers were told when they voted for or against. So I don't want to see that. I want to see clarity and transparency on that. So final thing, I'm sure Larry's going to update us on that, is there's a project with Foth in regards to a booster station on Goldendale. I know we've used Foth. I know that they're well thought of. It seems like Germantown's doing all the work on all of these projects and all of these initiatives. Why isn't Richfield running some of this stuff themselves? It's an opportunity for them to learn. Like, we shouldn't just do everything because we have experience. I think more throwing some stuff over to them, they should be doing some of the work and some of the background in that too, regardless of who is reimbursed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing there is not, we'll move on to new business. New business A, potential changes to the summer sewer service credit. Trustee Miller is going to give us a summary of the utility board findings and meetings. And Steve Krecklow cannot be here tonight, so Rick is going to handle that. And I think we'll start with that summary, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions and time for comments, okay? So why don't you lead us off?
I may lean on some of the members here that are here for the Utility Advisory Committee, but so if I misspeak on something, forgive me, and there'll be some time for comments and corrections on this. So last year, I'm going to say it's about a year ago now, roughly, the Public Works and the Village Board decided to change the summer sewer credit calculation from Q4 plus Q1 divided by 2 times 1.15. So if you follow that, 2 quarters, you divide them in half, multiply times 1.15, and that's your sewer rate. We changed it to Q1 and 2 instead of Q4, same calculation. So you're combining quarters 1 and 2, the first 6 months of the year, dividing that by 2, and then times 1.15. That was in place last year for the billing for the Q2 and the Q3. And one of the comments by Administrator Krecklow is that we didn't get much feedback in regards to Q2. I think we got a little bit in Q3 based on that calculation. Everybody else knows the history of the rest of the issues that we were having with water, with meters replaced, et cetera, et cetera. The bills were, I wouldn't say questionable, but there was a lot of things that were going on for that. So with all this said, the question is, should we go back to using Q1 and Q2 for the calculation versus the first 6 months of the year? So basically the last 3 months and the Q1. The Utility Advisory Committee came up, and it's kind of a misprint in here. It said it failed. It doesn't fail. It's a recommendation. So the recommendation is 2-2. It was a 2-2 vote. So it goes with no recommendation to the Public Works. Okay. 2 of our members decided to go against it, and I was one of those people to, and excuse me, the motion was to revert back to Q1 and Q4 for the calculation. And 2 people voted for it, 2 people voted against it. Okay. So with that said, a little bit of background. Steve Wesolowski, you have this calculation here. And I don't think anybody is going to argue that the least amount of water usage is in Q1 and Q4. Okay. You know, you just don't use as much as a consumer in Germantown in those 2 months because there is no outdoor activities. Now there's a caveat to that. Is that fair for everyone? That's the biggest difference. I shouldn't say difference, but that's the biggest question in front of us. Is that fair for everyone? It might be the most fair for people who use a lot of water outside and water their gardens and water their plants and that. People who don't do that, not an issue. People who leave the village for a period of time in winter, get a nice credit on that, and actually pay less than what they're utilizing, because their rate going on Q4 and Q1 is a very low amount of water, and they get a benefit from this. So when you blend all this in, it's very difficult to say what's fair. Like I said, I don't think anybody argues that Q1 and 4 are the two least amount of water usages in the year. But the recommendation from the staff was to wait until the sewer rate study is completed, and then we'll decide on what the rates is going to be and what the calculation is going to be. So Administrator Kreklow and the staff had recommendation was to leave it the way it is, use Q1 and Q2 for this year, wait for the water rate study, and then move on. Now, I was one that voted to continue that path. There's two other members here that voted to revert back to Q1 and 4. So that's really my speech, and that's kind of the background on the whole thing. Larry, do you look like you have something else to say? No? Okay. You're listening intently, is that it? So with that, I guess it's up to you, Terry, if you want to hear more comments or somebody has
I
more
would.
questions on it.
If, particularly if you were involved in the utility committee, the utility board, I would like to hear your comments. And if we could limit it to, like, say, 4 minutes or so, because we're not trying to redo the utility board. Okay? We know what that vote was, but I do want to hear you, and I think the residents here want to hear you as well. So, I mean, Steve, for example, why don't you come up and start us off? Well, now you get 4, so talk
You
slow.
said 4, so now you're screwing me up here, but this is on, correct? Okay. My name's Stephen Wazalowski, and I live at West 169 North 10427 Pheasant Run. I'm in the old farm subdivision for 37 years. And last year, the village staff put together a presentation to either eliminate or modify the second and third quarter surcharge. And I've read through documentation and searched facts and gathered information and looked to see if they did a cost analysis on why they thought we needed to do this. And frankly, there's no data to support this. It seems to be mostly subjective ideas from the village staff. One thing that, here's some things that happened. The staff provided several reasons. One was they said it was very time consuming for staff to do these calculations for summer credit. Well, they were being done on a computer system. I know that part of it, the system crashed, but now we have a brand new system that works even better. So it doesn't take more time on a computer to get these calculations out. The village staff also had put together a sampling of 100 customers that they provided to all the trustees. And they said, look at these 100 customers. And then what they did is they said, these are third quarter bills. Look at their usage. And then what they did is they took out completely took the credit out of their bills. And then said, look at this, we lost 55% in revenue. Well, of course, you took out the whole sewer credit. Unfortunately, that extra water usage didn't go into the sanitary sewer. It just didn't go there. So that was something they tried to justify. Last December, before I got to know the Blackstone Creek people here, they tried to change the 1.15 multiplier to 1.25 in December. And when I heard about that, I was here. I went to advisory board committee meeting before I was on that committee. And I think I was able to show and demonstrate a lot of facts and figures. And I've got all kinds of stuff. I got a big Bible that I've created on this stuff. And the fact is that they would have, there's no reason to do it. There never would be a reason. Yes, you use more water in the summer months, but I can show you through a water calculator that I built. Your water consumption in the summer goes up maybe 15 to 18%, maybe. And the question I always ask people, because in the summertime, do I flush my toilet more in June and July than I do in December? No, that didn't change. The only thing I might do is I might be doing more washing of clothes, which will, of course, go into the sewer. So that usage is there, but there's not very much increase in usage, especially since 1994. All the new homes that have been built since 94 all have flow restriction type toilets, shower heads, everything. Water usage is actually down by individuals nowadays. So that kind of answered that. And then the staff last year said, well, we did a quick check and we contacted other municipalities around here and we found that very few of them offer a credit. So I figured, okay, well, how many did they contact? What I did is the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District is made of 28 communities. I went out there on the websites or either contacted them and looked up those 28 communities to see how they charge for water. 40% of them still give summer credits to their customers. Now, the ones that don't, what's interesting about that, the ones that don't give that credit, what they do is they look at the winter quarter usage and then use that for the first, second, and third quarter. They look at the lowest consumption period, that winter quarter, and then they use that. And maybe in the future, we should go to something like that. I just want to remind the trustees that I think you may have been misled by the information provided by village staff. I do want to warn you that the half-truths that you've been provided with thus far, through that you may have gotten the wrong half. There are other facts that remain unknown to everybody on this subject. And now I want to tell you the rest of the story here. The wastewater utility says that they want to maintain their solvency. Well, I can tell you that they have roughly $6 to $7 million in a kitty sitting in their fund. That seems to make them pretty solvent, I would think. I also had sent out a handout to all the trustees on this committee here. And what's interesting is if you look at what I've done inside there, second quarter, losing the credit will actually affect people's bills from anywhere from 20 to over 100% on the sewer charge. If you use any water outside for any activity, you're going to pay more, and you shouldn't be paying more for that water that's going onto lawns or whatever. It's not going into a sanitary sewer. Third quarter is a little different because they're going to give you a credit, but because they took out quarter 4 and went to quarter 1 and 2, that credit's going to shrink. And those people are going to see between 15 and a 70% increase in their sewer charge. I just think that the savings to our seniors and young families would go a long way to help, even if people save $100 in the summer months, $150, it goes a long way for young families or for our seniors. Like we've got Karen Young here. Yeah, well, I had, you and I talk a lot. You're not.
Hey, Steve, we got about 1 minute, please.
Okay, sure. Okay. One thing that's real interesting is in your packet of information, one of the changes the staff said, if they wanted to catch the low water users, which were you guys right here. But actually what they said is if we change this formula, you guys will pay more. Well, obviously you guys are here because you are paying a lot more, but you still, to me, should all get a sewer credit. What happened by changing that formula, if you're a consistent user of water, and on page 4 of my document, it will show you, if you're consistent, whether you're high or low, you're actually going to pay less under the formula we went to now because of the 1.15 multiplier. I'll give you an example of how that works. So what staff said was going to increase revenue. If you're consistently using the water, village is losing, they're losing more money. It's just bizarre what has done here and what was happened. So in closing, I just want to say I'm part of the sewer advisory utility, and we've had a couple meetings. And what we're doing is we're trying to get the village to put together a proposal to hire a consultant to look at what we can do to study a sewer rate. I've been doing a lot of reading on this. I've got a lot of time now because I'm retired. So, and I like these kind of issues. So we're researching things, trying to find out what's right. It may not work out for everybody, but I know what we've got now is certainly not perfect and not fair to people. So thanks a lot, Terry. Okay.
Who else? Please, come on up, Scott.
Not going to be 4 minutes for me. I would never challenge Steve's math. His math is impeccable. So, but I'm also on the Utility Advisory Committee as a community resident, Scott Heffley, and I've spoke before. But I agreed that on the committee that we should have a rate study, or I'm sorry, a sewer study. We haven't had one in 40 years. That's longer. I was here 30 years and that's 10 years before me. So it's time. And I know we've amended it and looked at it, but I'm also the person that voted to say, put the credit back where it is, because if you don't know if the current credit is good, how can you guess that the new one is? So what I'm saying is, if it's not broke, don't fix it or whatever. Go back to the credit. We get this sewer analysis done. And if that number makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, we address it at that time with this committee and then with the village board. So go back to the way it was, not knowing if it's right. We'll know, we'll learn, and then decide then to take a corrective course of action if necessary. Thank you.
Rick has a follow-up comment.
I just got a couple follow-up comments. And one of the reasons that staff wanted to retain it is that because we just implemented Tyler Munis, the calculations are in. I don't know the inner workings of it. Yes, it's going to work better. Everybody got their first quarter bill, and I think that went very smooth. However, to change the water rate in there is a calculation, and they do have to engage with Tyler Munis. There is going to be some cost involved with that. I don't know what that is. Steve did not have that information either. And I mean Steve Krecklow. But I did want to inform that was the reason that the staff recommended not to change it. The other thing is, Steve mentioned that there's a surplus. Well, that's a surplus in the water utility. That's a separate fund than the sewer utility. Sewer's got the surplus? Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, great. And I did want to ask Paul one other thing, because one of the options that we've given people is to get a deduct meter. And can you come up, Paul, and just mention some of the costs? I want to make sure that we're talking about actual costs here and not some arbitrary number. So one of the options is you get a deduct meter, and then the water that you utilize outside gets subtracted from your usage.
Correct. We've been requested by many residents about deduct meters. Prior to new construction is probably the best time to do it. It can be done after people are living in the home. It can be a deduct meter when you take that reading off the water usage. So it'd be an additional meter cost. I don't have all the numbers in front of me. It all depends on the size.
And then installation cost.
And installation cost on the homeowner would have to cover that.
Paul, before you walk away, but if I remember from our previous meetings, those meters are expensive with the installation, like $300 or something.
Yeah, so a new meter, a new meter set is probably 185 total. Right, without installation. So
That's a lot of money. It is. And now nobody can hear you out there. So no, that's okay. We understand. I mean, it's almost a moot point compared to what we're really talking about tonight. But thank you, Paul. And you have anything else for Paul?
No, I don't. Thanks.
Okay. Larry wanted to just make a comment on the surplus in the sewer fund.
So in the sewer utility, there is a fund that collects money through the year, and it's several purposes. One is we have a large bill annually to MMSD. That bill can be anywhere, it's over the hill of $3 million. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It depends on usage, flows, customers. It could be, I've heard of $3.2, $3.3 million check that we have to write. That account, depending when you look at that account, that could be some of that money. Another thing is with having a number of lift stations we have, we like to have a reserve amount in case we have a lift station that just totally goes down. We have to have money to get it back up quickly. In an emergency situation, that could be a little more costly than if we plan to have it done. Third is the sewer utility always staves up money and looking to the future for their projects. The sewer utility does not borrow money for projects. It did 2 years ago for the large Northwest Interceptor sewer project that we did, and that was a $6 million project. and I believe we bonded 2.5 million, I think, and don't quote me, it's somewhere around there to bond to complete that large project. But usually the sewer utility, historically, wastewater utility pays for all their projects in cash.
Thank you, Larry. Who else would like to come up? After this lady, then you, okay?
Here we go.
My name is Karen Young. I don't like giving my address because the last time I was here, I did that in the newspaper. And living alone, I was rather nervous every time.
That's fine. Just whatever your comment is.
Okay, Karen Young, I'm in Old Farm. I do have some notes that I want to talk about. I did get a one-time sewer credit. I just got that letter, and it was dated March 2nd. And it told me that my sewer credit for last fall would be $120.12 because my bill was so terribly high, which is fine. But then when I get my bill that I just got for my water utility, it says I have a previous balance only minus $99.55. Now, I understand you're not going to tell me why that is, and I have to come back during the regular hours and talk to the people at the utility building, but this bill says it's supposed to make me read my bill. Thank you. Sorry. I thought I was hollering loud enough. Sorry. Easier to understand, but we have quarterly residential water service charge and a quarterly residential sewer charge. Now, that's not counting the water that I'm using. So I'm asking you, Larry, is this quarterly charge on my sewer volume, the 4148, is that what's stashing into the $5 million or $10 million you got? What is that for? I've been here 46 years. Haven't I paid for the sewer laterals enough? I just don't understand why that, because the residential water service is $19.35 I pay every quarter.
Okay, Ms. Young, that particular topic is not on the agenda. I'm going to let Larry give you the 30-second response to this, but we are talking specifically about this utility board and what's going to happen to it, how we're going to send it on to Village. That is something you will have to bring back in for an explanation, but I think Larry can maybe give you a very brief comment.
So what was the title on your bill? What was it called?
Well, it was a residential sewer charge. It's quarterly.
And that's addition to your water usage billing.
Yeah, a residential sewer volume. I'm thinking that's every time I'm flushing. That's 4148, and then the quarterly is 4001. So I'm paying $81 every time I'm
gonna take a shot at the answer, and what I believe the quarterly charge is for basic system maintenance and the ability to pay for the charges of when the system was built some years back, the large 48-inch diameter concrete pipe we have. And there's just a user fee to maintain that system. When you get to the flow charge, that's covering more of our expenses to pump that sewage and pay to MMSD.
understandable.
That's where kind of the breakup is for those two charges.
Okay. All right. Well, that does help. And just out of curiosity, I was wondering if everybody on this, all these trustees, do you all have Germantown sewer and water, or do you have well and septic?
I have well and septic.
Thank you.
Same here. I was on sewer and water for 20 years and then I moved. So I'm on 20 years both. I've had 20 years of both.
Okay.
Bill?
Sewer water.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Anybody else? You're next, right?
I'm Fred Schmelzer, north 115, west 17846, Sawgrass Court. I'm the president of the Glen at Blackstone Creek condominium. Upon review of the agenda for your April 5th meeting, I was pleased to read that you are finally recommending a formal rate review for the sewer utility. After attending 2 meetings on the subject of water and sewer billing, it was abundantly clear that no comprehensive study was done to fully understand the ad hoc changes that were made to the billing formulas. It was also clear to us residents that there was no clear objective articulated regarding these ad hoc changes and no comprehensive analysis of the result of those changes. We found that the manner in which the adjustments to the third quarter 2022 billings was disingenuous. To my knowledge, there was no communication to the residents of the village that the adjustments could be requested. There was no communication by the administrative office, the utilities department, or the trustees representing the residents. If judgments were made as to the extent of the issue by the number of adjustments requested, as opposed to having run a comprehensive report to identify residents with potential issues, then shame on you. The advice presented by Mr. Krecklow at prior meetings was to have residents install a second water meter at costs of up to $1,500 plus annual charges of approximately $120. Rate rationale was presented that higher water usage occurs in the summer and that would contribute to increased sewage flow. Well, we've heard tonight that that's not the case. Well, I personally am not in residence in Germantown for half of the days between May and November. Yet I received a refund, and I have a correction here, of $101. Now, at $150 annual cost for a second meter, that would net about $50 to amortize the $1,500 installation. With nothing changing, I would continue to be overcharged $101 per year. In prior meetings, much was said about the billing system that was decades old. It was communicated that reporting that would have compared proposed billing changes to existing formulas was not available. It was confirmed to me by Matthew Uselding on March 28th that the village is required to retain billing information for 3 years. If that data is stored as required, it can be accessed. To say it cannot be accessed because of the COBOL programming language is dead is totally inaccurate. Data storage is not language dependent. I spent the last 20 years of my career as a project manager for Kohl's department stores and was responsible for the development of all the COBOL-based systems that continue to support the logistics functions of that company. New languages are in place that better support the new device technologies and often provide front-end interfaces to the large data crunching applications. Problems with your old system are not language specific, but design specific. Problems with getting the reports to validate your proposed changes are decision-making problems. Hire someone to produce the correct decision-making reporting or continue to fly by the seat of your pants. Now, just prior to coming here, I opened up my first new water bill. I too think it's a bit confusing, but the part that stuck out to me is the consumption history. It shows current, which is fine. It shows spaces for 12/22 going back to 6/20. If it were me implementing this system, why wasn't that information populated from the old system into the new? I really have questions about what you have purchased, what you've installed, what services are providing. Mr. Miller talked about it would be difficult to change a rate. Any system that I've developed in the past, rates could be done on an ad hoc basis. What you bought apparently is also inadequate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmelzer. Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Bob Simonson. I reside at N115 W1785378, Sawgrass Court. And again, I'm treasurer of the condominiums at Sawgrass Court. Couple of clarifications before I go into my prepared statements. I actually do like the format, but as Fred just said, I think that the new company should have done an adjustment so that this graph doesn't show like it's a significant increase over a couple of other statements I heard tonight before I go into my statements is less than 10% of our residents at Sawgrass Court leave for the winter. So that out of 62 units, that's only 6 or 7 snowbirds that we have. The rest of us are flushing toilets and living active lives at Sawgrass Court. So we're not all in Florida. The other thing that, contrary to Steve's comments, is I think, Larry, you may not have enough money. I don't view that $6 million as surplus. I view that as reserve capital for expenditures and future expenditures. So I take no exception. And given the construction costs and other things, I'm not sure what that number should be, but I would not advocate using that term as surplus. I think that's just fiscal responsibility. I'm here to ask this committee why there is even discussion, yet again, about changing the methodology of the summer sewer credit. In your committee minutes from your February 8th meeting, it was discussed to remove the second quarter credit. In the minutes, Administrator Krecklow informed the committee that not many residents would be impacted. 62 of us are here. We're going to be impacted. Just don't understand the why. Why make the change? And based upon last year's debacle on Q3 water bills, specifically the sewer surcharges, why we just don't trust Administrator Kirklaw's statement. We believe that we would be significantly impacted as our irrigation systems are activated in May and June. Under this proposal, we would lose credit for May and June. Possibly Administrator Krecklow can offer an explanation as to why they want to make this change and to provide evidence that we would not be impacted. Use my bill. My request to this committee is to retain the former formula, Q4 and Q1. Precedence is better. Thank you.
For your comments, anybody else? Then we will go on and discuss this as a committee. And I guess hearing everybody here today, as well as looking at all the facts that Steve provided and that Rick shared, I agree that we should have the utility board take a look at do a sewer rate study and take a look at everything a lot more closely. That's just my view, and I would hesitate to make any more changes until we figure that out. But my question is, how long does it take to do something like that? I have no clue.
Yeah, they weren't, we really couldn't get that answer because it was so fresh. You know, they were just coming online with the utility bills for this quarter. So I don't think Matthew had that information of how difficult it is. And to Mr. Schmelzer's comments, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to change a rate in there. You know, to use a different quarter and calculate that same rate.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to agree with that. They just said it was going to be a little bit of an additional cost. I don't know what that cost is. Excuse me. The other thing is, the other thing is the second and third quarter bill. So basically we have two things that have not been reverted back to prior to our decisions last year. One is to include the second quarter in the summer sewer credit. And number two is the calculation to Q1 and 4 instead of Q1 and 2. The Utility Advisory Committee has already requested to get RFPs to do the rate study. We don't have those, but we hope to have some information next week at our meeting for that. It says here on the recommendation, direct Utility Advisory Committee to work with staff to complete a full rate review. Well, we're already doing that. We're already getting the RFPs. So I think the only thing in front of us here is up in the top section of this, and is that, do we want to revert back to that previous calculation?
And I'll jump in again unless somebody else wants to make a comment. Personally, I think we should revert back. And let's just reset to where we were and do this study and then figure out where we need to be, whether that means a rate increase or not. I mean, that could happen. We don't know. But to me, that seems like the most logical thing. I'm a little scared, as I think it was you, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. You pointed out that we have to be a little careful here with this system. Did we get the right system in place? Because I want to know how quickly, how easily we can revert back. That's the only question in my mind. But I think we'll have that answer by the next village board meeting, because this issue now will go to the village board. Whatever we decide, our recommendation goes to the village board for the entire board to talk about it, and we'll have that answer. And in fact, I will go ahead if it's, go ahead, Bill. I was just going to make a motion, and then we can continue discussion. I'm going to make a motion that we continue to move forward with the sewer utility rate study, and at the same time revert back to the old system of, what was it, 4 and 1?
4 and 1 and second and third quarter bills.
Yes, that would be my motion.
And I'll second that. And my comments are that like I said, I was one of the dissenting votes, but I've had a lot of time to think about this, and there's been so much talk and issues with the water and the sewer rates that I think it is probably best to just revert back, do the study, and then determine how we want to do this. One of the things in this whole picture is that we don't get usage from MMSD. We actually get a big bill, and that has to be broken up. And we have to figure out how to break that up among the consumers and in a fair way. And we don't know what fair is right now. So I tend to agree. Let's move back to this. Let's do the rate study, and then we can determine the fairest way in order to break this up.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should revert back also. The only thing that gives me pause is the statement, the short timeline would not leave us with enough time to test the change before implementation. We can't get this wrong, right? We've got a history, and I want to know a little bit more about what is meant by that sentence. Because we cannot fly by the seat of our pants on this one.
I think that's a good point, Phil. And if at least one of us votes against this, this will go very much, there's a lot of discussion at the village board level. It's better for it not to be unanimous in that case. What do you think, Bill? Any comments?
No, my only comment is when we're talking about Tyler Munis, is it the system or is it the people putting the information into the system?
We don't know.
And that's, that point is brought up here. And that concerns me, because that system, for what we paid for, should be able to do whatever we're really looking for it. But do we have the knowledge here of how to operate it?
Yeah, my interpretation was that we just don't have the experience yet.
Yeah.
To do that, so that we need assistance in order to implement this.
Yep.
But I believe if this goes to the village board, that we will have those answers. We can have Matthew there, and we can, we can get some answers on that.
Okay.
I am concerned about that as well, that it can't be tested. They're saying they can put the formula in, that's not an issue, but can we test some bills on that? And that's really what we need to make sure. Like Phil said, we have to make this right. We have to get it right.
Yeah, definitely, Phil. That's the truest statement here tonight. Okay, any more comments or discussion? If not, we will vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and one opposed. And this obviously will be discussed once again at length at the village board meeting, okay? And we'll hopefully have answers to this Tyler Munis question about how quickly we can change things. Because Steve Krecklow and our accounting people will be there. so. For your comments and thank everybody for coming. Okay, moving on. Scott, spring tree planting.
Good evening. Let's get moving right along here, I guess, right?
We got to fly. We got 15 minutes.
You may remember last year in the fall, we brought forward an ARPA tree planting project that didn't move forward.
Right.
The reason I bring that up tonight is just as a quick reminder, 957 vacancies is what came out of our DNR or our update last year with the DNR grant. And just a reminder too, that part of that or a lot of that focus was going to be in residential areas. Previously, we had planted in parks and we had planted around village buildings along main thoroughfares. The ARPA was going to be focused mainly on replanting in private areas.
Is that street trees, Scott?
Street trees, but still in residential areas.
Okay.
Yep. And so, again, as part of our routine street tree maintenance budget, we're bringing forward planting 75 trees. That was put out for bid here earlier this month. We had a number of people bid on it, and you will notice that Dan Larson Landscape is our recommendation to plant those 75 trees. We're currently still working with Wachtell on the exact locations, but again, those focuses will be in residential areas.
Okay, committee?
I would recommend that we award the bid to Dan Larson Landscaping to complete the 2023 spring tree planting project in an amount not to exceed $25,605. And that would come out of maintenance account 10-553-530-5290.
Second that.
Quick question for you, Scott. Are we familiar with Dan Larson Landscaping? Are they
Good
good?
question. Just like last year with Property Solutions, we do have less familiarity with Dan Larson. But between Nathan and myself, we had a discussion about it. Nathan has talked to him. He has no problem meeting our criteria. We also can still go select and tag all of the stock that we want.
And he'll guarantee them like former?
Same guarantees
Okay,
as
perfect.
always. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to C, Wisconsin DOT salt commitment.
Again, this is a pretty routine, straightforward annual thing that we bring before you. Again, the timing of the DOT commitment, our deadline was March 27th. So we go ahead and we make that commitment based on a 20 to 22 year history, which was provided for you. We currently made a commitment. Well, let's just start with this winter. We used 2,135 ton of salt this last winter. We've made a commitment for 2,280 ton for the winter 2023-2024 season. And of course, we are recommending that we would remain part of the DOT salt bid process.
I'll make a motion to remain part of the DOT salt bid process and purchase up to 2,280 tons of road salt.
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? Bill?
Just one question. Does all that salt come at one time, or do we purchase that throughout the winter?
Yeah, it doesn't all come at one time, and it really depends on the season. The answer to your question depends on the season. This year, for example, we had a very full dome at the beginning of the season. We tapered it down through the season, and now we're filling it back up for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, moving on to the new security fence around wells 5 and 7.
Good evening. So I'm going to be presenting a small PowerPoint about an issue we have at well 5 and 7. It's, we're calling it a wellhead protection security perimeter fence. This is the 2 well structures that are located on Western Avenue. First slide you'll see is in the center. This is kind of a zoomed out view of what you're looking at. The well houses are in the center, the small square box, the 2 buildings. Surrounding that is residential dwellings, condominiums. And the next slide, you'll see it's a zoomed in view, a closer look. You can see the border perimeter property lines. That's what we own, plus the access road out to Western. So the problem we have is we're having trespassing and vandalizing of the property, and we need just better wellhead protection. The local residents are using this property as pretty much a dog park. Also, in the past, at well 7, the meter socket and the pedestal was pulled off the outside of the building, exposing the high voltage 480. And also, in the past, not sure who it was, but someone smeared the dog feces all over the door handles. Next couple slides, I won't try to bore you, but there's 3 of them just showing the remnants of the dog park use. This is all on our property, close to the well property, or wellhead structures. The next slide is at well 5. It might be difficult to see, but there was someone either tried to break the door down, but it's indented footprint of the steel door, access door into our well house. Next slide, we had some soccer field goalie work going on here, soccer game against the building. Not damaged, but just, again, we call it trespassing on our property. Next slide, someone decided to use the sidewalk at well 5 as a paint booth. Paint something, not sure what. Didn't catch them, but that was the leftovers of their activity. Next slide, while we were doing roof inspections, we found a pile of toys thrown up on top. The next slide, this was a shocker, it's about a 15-pound rock that was thrown on top of the roof. Fortunately for us, pea gravel and the structure held, didn't crack any of the roof membrane. Next slide, this is well 7 on the south side of the building. Someone used the glass block as target practice from a pellet gun. The next slide is, I took this just recently on our very last snowstorm. This is well 7 looking east, and you can see the foot traffic quite a bit. I didn't want to bore you with more dog duty piles, but there was quite a few. This is now looking back west behind well 7, foot traffic. So we do have signage on the property. This is at the entrance of Western, no entry. Obviously people can't read with the dog waste, and it is a village ordinance that is punishable by a fine. This is a sign on the west side of the facility looking east. Same kind of calling out, it's a wellhead protection area. And also just to make note, this area has a very high groundwater static level. I just took a measurement off our SCADA system. It's about at 9 feet. So that's pretty significant. It's a very well-charged recharge zone. So the static water is high, and you have all this fecal matter. It just isn't really good for the water. Back in 2021, as you remember, we installed AC units at some of our wells. Because of all the vandalism, we installed 6-foot barrier fences around that, just to keep them safe. Next slide is an exhibit of what we're kind of proposing around the property. This is a 6-foot high vinyl black coated chain link fence. The next slide would be an example of a cantilever barbed wire protection, which we're not going to install, or not we're requesting to be installed at well 7, but it can be installed at a later date. Kind of makes it a little more, I don't know, I wouldn't say unsightly, but it certainly isn't the best thing to have. But again, we can install it at a later date. We did get a price for that as well. So the next slide is kind of what we're proposing. The red dash would be the perimeter fence zone. We're including a 20-foot power actuated gate with photo eye, safety loop, and keypad entrance. So this is a very active well. We're in there quite often, and we can access and give key codes to whoever we want. There would be also a 4-foot, by code, a 4-foot pedestrian gate on this. And we would include on the west side a 4-foot gate just for if we need to get out on that backside. So what we did is we solicited 3 quotes: Munson Armstrong Fence, Century Fence Company, and Statewide Fencing. 3 bids came in. The low bid at $45,520 is what we are requesting permission to spend on this project. It's not to exceed. We also, just to be transparent, we did solicit 3 quotes for the electrical work. Pieper Electric, J. Miller Electric, and Next Electric. The low bid was $49.90. So we're not asking permission. We can spend that under our spending authority. We're just asking for the $45,520. So if there's any questions.
Is 6 feet high enough?
Well, it's a deterrent. They make them higher. We didn't get prices for higher. They make them 8 foot. I mean, I think around the police department, it might even be even a 8 to 10 foot fence. If somebody wants to get in, they can. Battery powered die grinder can cut through a chain link fence pretty quick. So if you want it higher, we'll get prices to make
This
it higher.
is better than nothing. You've always had nothing.
It's better than nothing. It's going to certainly be a deterrent.
Okay.
You know, and just the traffic, just the foot traffic for
Mhm.
sure. I mean, I think some of this stuff to the buildings is just more dumb kids, and it's cyclical. So you get the wayward kids come in and, you know, they go through the grade school, high school, and then they move out, and then it's quiet, and then you get the new bad batch in, and so it kind of floats there. So I think for sure it's going to be a deterrent for all the foot traffic. I know I'm probably going to get phone calls because it is very active through there. People,
It's okay.
they sled their
Yeah.
kids, they
Well-
play on it. It's a park for them. So
Okay. Committee, what do we have?
I'll make a motion to recommend the bid from Statewide Fencing, Inc., not to exceed the amount of $45,520 from account 50-180-184-3310, and to forward on to the village board with a positive recommendation.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
thank you.
Paul, you have the next one too, and I do notice public safety is trying to get in here, so.
Make
we're
it
gonna-
quick. So we,
Yeah, we'll step on the gas
we've
here.
got an open PO we're requesting. We're starting our commercial meter install project. We've identified about 200. We've budgeted $50,000 this year. So that we're asking for the maximum amount. We probably won't spend it all, but it's to start the commercial meter install replacement project.
And it's in the budget,
It
correct?
is, correct.
Committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the authorization of an open PO not to exceed $50,000 from account 50-18-0-18-3-3460 for commercial water meters.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Moving on, Larry, you have this one, annual 2023
I have-
annual road improvement?
I have the remainder of
Project.
them.
Okay,
So, annual road improvement program, we got 3 bids this year. The Pan Dolan was the low bidder at $2,072,809.70. This project includes 17 streets and also includes repaving the Glenwood Park subdivision. That there is a project approval on this, on the agenda tonight for a sanitary sewer and water main relay project in that subdivision. So we're doing about 17 streets. I was directed to spend as much of the total money that we have either currently in the CIP program, which was $1 million, and leftover money, which is around 1.8 to $1.9 million. So we're at 2.2 million, but this project also includes a repayment of some water main work that's being done through this project, which is around 200 and some thousand. and we get a payback from the Glenwood Park subdivision. I charge the sanitary sewer and water utility a third of the street width, because when you relay the sewer and water, that's about what they would have to patch. That's the policy we've always had. So I'm looking for approval. The project is from account 40-542-570-8810, and we have sufficient funds to cover this project.
Committee?
Make a motion to approve the road improvement program. What's the dollar amount? 2,200,000?
$2,072,809.70.
And award it to Payne and Dolan for the amount $2,072,809.70.
And to Village Board.
Second that.
Anyway, we have a motion and a second. I just want to make a quick comment. These were all the roads that we approved months ago for this. I mean, this has been in the budget. This is every year. So that's where that did come from.
We may have stole one road from 24 even, I'm not quite sure, but we tried to fill up to spend the $2 million.
Okay, perfect.
Larry, do you have any, like, extra in case there is some extra undercutting or
Yeah.
overages?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on. Rupert Milkie contract.
The contract for Rupert Milkie to hire them to perform a sanitary sewage facilities plan update. While going through the work with Sewer Pack to bring Richfield into our sewer service area, they pointed out to us that we've been doing amendments to the sanitary sewer service area, but we haven't done a full facilities plan update since 1983. And they are requiring, MMSD and Sewer Pack are requiring us to do a total facilities plan update. We have actually started doing that with some of the work we have to do in the background to bring Richfield in. And we're looking for approval for Rupert Milkie to do this work. They gave us a proposal as a time and materials proposal at an estimated cost of $62,400. This would be paid for by the wastewater utility, and that's some of that money that was talked about earlier tonight.
Committee?
This would benefit, this would be done also not only just because of the Richfield, but
Requirement.
for the requirement for the village as well, correct?
Oh,
Because-
correct. So say Richfield wasn't even in the play right now,
Right.
and we wanted to add other sections of the village into the sanitary sewer service area, they would make us do this.
Yep.
They've been letting us float by doing these small amendments, but now they wanted us to do a whole new facilities plan to catch up.
So they can get more money, ultimately. Anyway, committee, what do we have?
I would move for the approval of the $62,400 for Rupert and Milkie to complete a sanitary sewerage facilities plan update and forward that, of course, to the village board.
Second it.
Comments, discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, booster station contract.
Booster Station is the pumping station that's required. It's located on Goldendale Road. We purchased that land back in, I think, 2018. It was bid out back during that time, and we got a very high bid at that time. And then it was put on hold because of the discussions that ensued with the raising the water tower. The final design of the station couldn't be completed until we knew the height of the water tower, because the higher the tower, the higher the pressure these pumps had to pump. So this booster station will take water from the lower pressure zone, which is the zone we all take water from down here right now. And the Holy Hill area operates at a higher pressure zone because of the elevation of the land. And so we received 5 bids, as you can see. Low bid was $1,114,550 by Mike Koenig Construction Company, and the high bid was Mid-City Corporation at $1,291,500. Actually, for that amount of money, these bids came in very close, which tells me all the time that we had a good set of plans that everybody operated off of, and they are all bidding the same thing.
Ready?
I'll make a motion to approve the booster station contract and award it to Mike Koenig Construction in the amount of $1,114,550.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I have a question, Larry. In this case, this booster station was going in no matter what was happening in Richfield. Is that correct?
Correct. Even with the tower without Richfield at the original lower tower height, we needed the booster station.
Okay, that's how I remembered it.
The only change was we had to put in a higher capacity pumps. And that dollar amount was worked into the IGA agreement with Richfield.
So they are paying for that?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Any more comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on. Award contract for Glenwood Park subdivision, sanitary sewer and main relays.
So this project was on the dockets for years to get done. And part of the problem was just the water utility be able to cooperate and be funded to do this work. We bid this out. We got 3 bids: MJ Construction, Mid-City Corporation, and Super Excavators. The low bid was by MJ Construction at $2,994,960. Now, this project becomes sort of convoluted in a way, and I'll explain as quick as I can. If you recall back about 2 years ago, we approved a PP&I program, which is a funded program through Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. If you look at the top of the drawing there, the green section is what we bid out, and work is started and will be completed through this spring and early summer. The bottom section is red is what we just bid out with this project. So part of this $2,994,000 and change will be paid back for all the sanitary lateral work, will be covered under the PP&I program through MMSD. And that number is approximately, and these are all estimated quantities, of course, it's around $854,000 that would come backed off from the MMSD grant money back. And then this also eliminates the oldest lift station remaining in the village. We're going to divert the flow out to the sanitary sewer pipe in Pilgrim Road. And so it eliminates the lift station that the utility currently has to maintain. There is a water main section on here, so this project will be divided up between the wastewater utility, MMSD, and the water utility. And this project will be paved then. We're talking at the end of the year paving program. They have until the end of September to complete this project as far as all the pipe. And then the paving project you awarded is going to repave this whole subdivision as part of the paving program.
Committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the park sanitary sewer and water main relay project. And approve the bid from MJ Construction in the amount of $2,994,960.
I'll second.
Comments, questions, discussion? Anything? If not, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Let's see. Finally, the new Department of Public Works building, bid package number 3 for approval.
So this is the bid package number 3. It is the final bid package of all the original items that are included in the project development. It included some miscellaneous items for equipment for the maintenance bay, like the lifts and the oil pumping equipment, a paint booth, and elevator appliances. Those are all separate, but included in here. Those were done through request for proposals. But we publicly opened bids for the new salt shed for that site, the metal building for the yard waste recycling center. There's a fuel station with canopy and fuel pumps. And there's a bulk water fill station that will be out on the main road, which will replace the bulk water fill station we currently have at the current recycling yard. So as far as the bids go, we are below the original estimated cost at this point by $123,848.
And let's see, what do you need from us? Just approval of this?
Approval due to a dollar amount, they need to have approval and then swing it through the board.
Okay. Committee?
I'll move for the approval of the bid package number 3 for the DPW facility in the amount of $6,753,122 and forward that to the village board.
Second.
Questions, comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Finally, it brings us to updates on any projects. Anybody pull anything out that they want to hear a 30-second explanation on? Okay, a minute explanation. Nothing?
I'll talk to Larry about one some other time.
Okay, Larry, is there any, one that you wanted to pull out, or are we good?
No, I'm good. The only thing I didn't put in here in a real 2 minute or less than that is all the work that's being done on the Interstate 41 and 45. We're trying to keep a notice on the website and the 2 Facebook accounts as we get it in. They are very detailed on their closures. We get notified of the zoo interchange closures and everything else being done by the DOT right now. So they are on schedule. And just to recap, Freistadt Road is closed and will be closed, of course, till the bridge deck is completed. And then they will move on to Mequon Road. There are some minor projects being done, like Landon Road's being freshened up a little bit, repainted. Maples got some things done. The big one that's going to happen is when they close down County Trick Highway Q. As the eastbound will be totally closed down, along with the 2 ramps that either exit to it or access from it, ingress, egress, and then when that's done, they'll do the west side. So that's it.
And there's nothing we can do about it, so there you have it. Okay, our next meeting date, how, Tuesday or Wednesday, what works best for everybody in May? Either Tuesday, May 2nd, or Wednesday, the 3rd? You golfing now? Yeah. Wednesday, the 3rd work? Okay, 5:30, Wednesday, the 3rd. And with that, we'll adjourn this meeting at 6:41. Thank you, everyone.